Indie games. Why do we love indie games so much? With the rise of popularity of indie games, from Among Us to Hades to Celeste to even Minecraft at some point was an indie game. It still is, actually. Why do we love these games so much, and why do they explode in popularity? To me, we can explain it with 3 simple words. First word is expectation. Not to take away the greatness of these games, but indie games, when they fail or they fall on their face, no one really cares. But when an indie game becomes popular, it's great for the whole gaming community. In contrast to a AAA game, when a AAA game fails, the backlash from the gaming community is a lot bigger. The main reason for this is because AAA games are made by AAA developers and publishers, which usually means there's a lot of hype and overpromise behind these games. Now, when a AAA game hits its mark, it's a success. But recently, a lot of AAA games miss the mark entirely. And when that happens, the backlash is so enormous that people are just so mad at these developers and publishers. But when an indie game fails, no one really cares. No one really knows about it. Most of the time, we don't even hear about indie games that fail. With AAA games, people expect really good games because behind these games are the AAA developers and publishers with proven games. Like BioWare, who everyone knows made some of the best games we've had in the past year, came out with 2 really trash games. First one is Anthem, and then the next one was Andromeda. When BioWare released these 2 games, they promised that Anthem was going to be the next big leap for gaming. Yeah, I don't think so. And then with Mass Effect Andromeda, because of people's nostalgia and because of the love that a lot of people, including myself, with the Mass Effect trilogy, I really did hope that Mass Effect Andromeda would be that next step for the Mass Effect series. But it fell flat on its face again. The other thing is that since a lot of these indie games are made by small groups of people or sometimes just one person, people rarely hear about these games when they're in development. Indie games tend to not have any hype behind them or a dedicated marketing team selling their game, unlike AAA games. We've seen that recently with Cyberpunk. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying Cyberpunk. It's really fun, but the marketing for this game was really scummy. So, to generalize, the expectation for indie games aren't that big. If they fail, we don't really care. If they're popular, we have a new game to play. So that's a win-win for all of us. The next word is simplicity. Most indie games aren't known to have fancy graphics. They're not known to have the next-gen graphics that a lot of these AAA marketers are selling to us. But yet, some of the most beautiful games to date come from indie games. We have games like Journey, Abzu, Cuphead with its beautiful drawn animation, and a lot more games that look beautiful but have simple graphics. They don't promise next-gen graphics, they're just beautiful art styles that it's appealing to look at. Now, the next thing about simplicity is the simple yet hard to master mechanics, or simple mechanics that you use throughout the whole game. With Darkest Dungeons' strategy-focused gameplay, and Stardew Valley's farming and collecting gameplay, to Cuphead's difficulty with its mechanics. Mechanics that look simple in the beginning, but as you progress, have steep learning curves for some indie games. For others, there are creative applications for simple mechanics, like in Celeste, and so much more. In contrast to most AAA games today, with a lot of convoluted game mechanics that you only use in one part of the entire game and forget you even had these mechanics. Remember Chop from GTA 5? As much as I love doggos, Chop was really useless throughout the whole game. You would only use Chop, I think, in one mission particularly, and after that, you had the option to choose Chop, but what for? So there was also this app that GTA or Rockstar wanted you to download to train Chop. I mean, did anyone actually use that? I mean, I certainly didn't. The other example is in Skyrim with woodcutting and cooking. Did anyone actually do woodcutting or cooking? I mean, I didn't. If you're doing a specific playthrough, maybe you did, but I can assure that almost everyone that played Skyrim for the first time or for their 100th time wouldn't use woodcutting or cooking unless it's like a specific challenge you're trying to do. We've talked about the simplicity of the art style and how beautiful indie games look. Their music as well. There's some of the most relaxing and calming music in the background and most iconic music. To me, music is the most important thing in the game. To me, music makes a game iconic. And a lot of indie games have this really iconic tune that's just really beautiful to listen to. And the last word is execution. Some of the most fun games to learn and play can be found in indie games, as I mentioned, like Undertale's unique gameplay mechanics. Shovel Knight and Getting Over It are very frustrating games, but really enjoyable. So when you combine these three words, simplicity, expectation, and execution, they're like the holy trinity of an indie game for me. We mentioned about the simplicity of mechanics with indie games, but a lot of these indie games have their mechanics polished to a point where they're seamless, where you're seamlessly controlling your character, you're seamlessly going through the world without having to worry about your character not responding correctly to a movement or an order you gave your character. And with a lot of indie games that I've personally played, I haven't seen too many bugs. So that's connected with simplicity and execution. And overall, a lot of indie games just feel complete. That's the most important part of it. They're not like AAA games right now that come out broken and developers have to over time give us a roadmap to fix their $60 priced game. For an indie game, you're going to be spending a lot less for a game that's usually fixed and ready to go. And that's rare to have currently. So do I think that every indie game is perfect? Of course not, but we rarely hear about any of the bad indie games, to be honest. Like I said earlier, when an indie game fails, no one really cares because they're pile of junk of indie games that we don't even hear about. Now, you might think that I hate AAA games. No, my top 3 games of all time are AAA games. It's just that most of the AAA games that are recently coming out have been a big disappointment both technically and mechanically. I personally didn't play a lot of indie games growing up, but recently with my disappointment, I found that indie games are games that we could play that'll give us a lot of that nostalgic feeling when we were playing on a Game Boy or a DS, or old games on the PS2 where updates for games weren't a thing yet, and those games back in that era were just plain complete. Right now, a lot of these games are coming out broken and unfinished, which is just really, really annoying. I think that's something that the gaming community shouldn't accept from developers and publishers. We should all stand up against paying for something in full price and getting an incomplete item. No one wants to pay for something incomplete, and it's annoying that a lot of these AAA games are doing this to all of us. But to me, indie games and AAA games, they kind of balance themselves out. You know, AAA games, we won't be able to appreciate indie games if we don't have AAA games, and we don't have games to compare AAA games to if we don't have indie games that are complete and ready to go and just beautiful. I love AAA games and indie games. Gaming in general, I really am passionate about them. But I think that the rise of indie games is directly caused by a lot of these AAA games missing the mark for everyone. Do I think that's a bad thing? No, it's actually a really good thing for us gamers. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today. I tried something different today with this video. I didn't actually have a script. It was more of like a bullet form thing where I'm just gonna speak about stuff and like talk about specific points in the video that I want to emphasize, I guess. So thank you if you listened this far, and yeah, I'm gonna talk to you guys soon. Peace out. Like the video if you like it, subscribe, help us reach 20 subs. Cool. I'll see you guys soon.